Welcome to Jane's Place, where dreams learn to fly. Season 2, the Strength Series. If you are new to Jane's Place, welcome. If you joined me last season, thank you for continuing the journey with me. For those of you watching this podcast, you see a picture of me from the summer of 1995. I was just promoted to division president at Frito-Lay, the highest ranking woman at Frito, and the first woman in a president role. At 36, I was at the top of my game, and it's pretty evident from the look on my face, the glass of champagne, and the cigar that I thought I was somebody important. And maybe I was. But within 6 months, there would be a reorganization at Frito, and my position would go away. I would move into a role that was clearly a demotion, and within 2 years, I would leave the company. From hero to zero. From my vantage point today, the story of why I got demoted is not very insightful. What is insightful is that I did not have the tools to deal with this failure. I didn't realize that it was just one of many bumps in the road that I would have in both my professional and personal life in the years that have followed. I didn't realize that this was just part of my journey where failure and success are two sides of the same coin. I didn't realize that I would be a better leader and stronger person on the other side of this. Honestly, it hurt like hell and shook my confidence. So in season 2, I talk about passion again, and I ask most of my guests about resiliency and how they manage during tough times. Because it is not if we will have failure, it is just when. And when the win comes, and it will, do we have the tools to learn and grow from it? Thanks for joining me for the Strength Series. And spoiler alert, 30 years later, failure still sucks. On today's episode, I am chatting with Kristine Carey, Executive Director for Naturally Colorado, one of the sponsors of Season 1 of Jane's Place. Kristine has done a remarkable job of leading the transition of Naturally Boulder, the original trade association for natural and organic products, into Naturally Colorado, encompassing all the entrepreneurs that are creating businesses and jobs in Colorado. Please go to janesplace.com to learn more about Kristine and her favorite comfort food. All right, Kristine, so let's get into the topic of resiliency.
Sure.
I'm super interested about this with where I'm at in my life and my career and how people cope with things that are difficult. And I think especially in the time that we're in today, there's a lot that people are dealing with. And I would really love your perspective on your life and career and sort of what has formed how you think about yourself being resilient.
Well, first, I would say resiliency is really important for anybody. For me, as a community of entrepreneurs and then myself, just living life, resiliency is important because it is your stamina to keep going. It is your will to keep going. And I was in the Air Force, and one of the biggest pieces of being in the Air Force was being resilient and improvise, adapt, overcome. And I really think that that's an important piece of like your ability to learn from the successes and learn from the failures and to keep going. Because resiliency is a lot about getting into situations you have no idea what you're doing, or you have no idea, you have no reason to be there, but you're there, right? So I really think that if you're improvising, you're actually looking at the situation, you're reading the room, you're taking all those pieces and actually saying, all right, I can do this, even though you don't have the experience, but you really want to keep going. And your ability to adapt then to the situation is to grow, is to actually say, all right, here's the things that have become successful from an event, a project, whatever it is that you weren't able to really get into because you didn't know how to do it, but you got a success from it. Or maybe you got a failure from it, because a lot of times we learn from failures, right? I think the most time we're learning from failures. And I think that having the failures is really important for you to then say in resiliency that it's okay. You can keep going. And I think a lot of times entrepreneurs, anybody in your personal life, a lot of times when you fail, you're like, I'm not going to keep moving on. And resiliency will let you keep moving on.
So the third one is overcome then? Is that right?
Yeah. So that would ultimately be that when you have a failure, to keep going, or when you have a success, how do you take that success now and then build upon it and make something even better, or teach someone else, or share what you have done, because then you're really kind of continuing to move on. So even when I say overcome, sometimes that sounds like it's a failure piece of it, but an overcome is also making sure that your success is really manageable, that you can move on. Because I also think you have to have confidence, but at the same time you have to be humble. Like, you can't go into everything being like, I got this. Right? Because you're like, I don't always have it, but and some successful people are the ones that come in and say, I got this, even though they know they don't have it, but they're going to figure it out. They're going to improvise, they're going to adapt, and they're going to overcome. And the between successes and challenges or failures is the best part, because the in-between is where you're learning all kinds of things, because hopefully you have more successes than failures, but ultimately you'll probably have more failures than successes. And those are the things that you're really going to be like, all right, I won't do that again. And you expand upon all the things that you're learning.
Well, I love this improvise, adapt, and overcome. But what really strikes me, Kristine, is if you don't get the first part right, you can't get to the second two pieces. So how, in your experience, how do you open your aperture to be able to improvise? Like, how, because so many people, at least in my experience, like, change is so scary, and like to like be able to say, okay, I can look at this in but different ways, and then adapt, and then overcome. How do you kind of think about the improvise piece?
I would say there's two things, because ultimately it's like your social connections. It's your friends and family, the people that are around you that can help you and support you to get through that. Maybe a mentor. A mentor is going to teach you something, so that the things that you're trying to improvise on, you can learn from them and put that into that and make those changes. I also think you have to have some cues for yourself. Like, what are your own coping mechanisms? Like being someone who's high strung or A type and like always wanting to do everything. Where do you draw the line to say, all right, I need to say no right now. I need to have some personal space. I need to take time for myself. And ultimately, you have to know yourself personally to say, all right, I'm going to say no to you. I want to do this, but I can't, or look at it and say, all right, I know that I can make this happen. All right, I'm going to push forward on it. But you have to have your own coping mechanisms. And I think having a mentor is really key. Personal mentors, friends, family, or a business mentor, because if you're building a business or you're doing something with, I don't know, building a home in your family, you have to have somebody else who's lived those things, so that you can learn from that, because a lot of times we don't have to reinvent the wheel. Right? Everybody's always trying to reinvent the wheel. I'm like, oh my God, please don't, because you're just going to drive yourself crazy, Inventions and innovative things, yes, reinvent those wheels. But for the most part, people have been living life for quite some time.
Right.
Lots of people can share things. And I think, especially in the Naturally Colorado community, everybody's collaborative. And so I have, a group of girlfriends who are really important to me, that provide personal input to me, my family, and work. But I also have mentors at the same time. So those are things that help me have the resiliency to keep going, because a lot of times it like kind of sucks when you do something wrong.
Right.
You're like, now what do I do? And sometimes that can put a lot of fear in yourself, like you're not good enough or something. But you just have to look at it are you gonna drive a passion for that, like you've talked about before, and how do you keep moving?
Well, you spend really all of your work time now working with entrepreneurs, running Naturally Colorado. What do you see are some of the biggest blocks with entrepreneurs in this kind of area? Like, there's a couple of ways we could go with this, which is the resiliency part, and how do people give up too quick, or do they stay in too long? Or even the mentor part of, like, are people resistant to mentors and are trying to do it all themselves? So I kind of could go anywhere that you kind of want to go with that.
I would say there would be two things that I would see as two paths right now. The part about being an entrepreneur, it's lonely, right? So you're trying to do something. Maybe you think you know all the things that have to get done, but you really don't. So being alone, find, again, friends, family, mentors that can help you not be alone and help you drive that. And really looking at, okay, be open to the feedback, because I think entrepreneurs have a lot of confidence, which is great, but you also have to listen to what people are saying. You can't listen to everybody because everybody is all over the place.
Right.
You have to listen to the right people, one for yourself, but then also for your business. And I think if you're listening intently to what people are saying, then you can move your personal self and your entrepreneur, and then also in your business at the same time. Because if you don't listen, then you're not going to really get any, you're not going to really get any kind of, drive out of moving forward. You're going to be potentially stuck.
It's funny because I, like you, have spent a lot of time with entrepreneurs. And one of the things I always try to be cognizant of is this sort of advice whiplash, where Jane says one thing to Earl and you say something else, and you're like, oh my gosh, they said exactly opposite things. Like, where do I go with that?
Right.
Do you see that much
I see that today? I see that a lot. A lot of like recommendations, who to meet with, who to go with, or where to drive your business. And again, I think you have to think of your business for you. Like, what do you want to do it? Do you really want to make it to, a $200 million business? Take that advice. Do you want to keep it as a lifestyle business? Take that. Where you are in your business too. Like, if you're just starting out and someone gives you advice that is for a $10 million business and you're only a $1 business, $1 million business, then that's different, right? So you have to really look at the advice that's happening. And I also think that if you're getting just advice, that's one thing. But if you have a mentor that then could help you figure out what that advice is and which way to go. Again, lots of people have done this before. So, taking advice smartly is the best way to move forward.
I love what you said earlier about there's no reason to reinvent the wheel. I mean, reinvent the wheel on products, right?
Totally.
Products,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
There's always
Innovation. Yeah.
like
Ingredients, all the
yeah,
things.
exactly. But it's sort of this human experience. Like, this isn't the first time someone's come up with a new product. It's not the first time someone's tried to raise money. It's not the first time someone's tried to do a pitch to somebody. So how do you not have that sort of loneliness kind of feeling that you can have when you don't really have to be alone on some of this?
Well, I think a lot of it is getting into a community like a Naturally Colorado that actually has other founders that you can then talk with and network with, or really just kind of brainstorm ideas. That's how Naturally Boulder, now Naturally Colorado, started, because you and I would have different businesses, or potentially even the same kind of connecting business, but we talked. But what are you doing? This has been really successful, and this is not, so don't try that. And just because we have that conversation and that relationship, it means that we're not alone doing it. And the more, again, you can have that connection, it's so much easier. And building a business is hard, right?
Yeah.
But it's your passion. And so along with resiliency is like, you have to really know that this is what you want to do, because otherwise you potentially might give up. Or if you know this is really you're going to keep going because you're resilient. You know that this is what you want to do. You're passionate about it. It's a mission that you want to accomplish. So if you have those kind of guidelines, then you'll keep going.
How long have you now been at the head of Naturally Colorado?
About 2.5 years.
Now, and what could you share, maybe one example where you had to be resilient? Because I've been on the boards of nonprofits, never run one. But as a board member, I'm always like, wow, it's much easier to run a for-profit than a nonprofit. So this is my observation. But in the 2.5 years that you've been doing it, is there like something that you've really had to be super resilient about?
I would say what we're trying to do right now with Naturally Colorado. So we transitioned from Naturally Boulder to Naturally Colorado last year, and that took a lot of work. So I think that the culture with Naturally Colorado that we've created now is that, let's try things and let's work towards things. And I don't have to worry if I fail at something that someone's going to, really beat me up about it. Because if you're working on a project and you don't have that confidence to keep going, if you don't know the answers, it's really difficult. So I think that, the idea of making that transition and just keep going, because it's going to be a big piece, a big project for us. And we're a team of two. So resiliency is going to really come into play. Like, how do we get all the things that we want done? How do I continue to say yes to things while at the same time saying no to some things? Because we have to be smart about it too. Like, I don't want to run two people, into the ground. Our board, which you kind of mentioned, is very working board. So they're super supportive and very helpful. And I think it's putting people around you, like I was saying, like friends, family, mentors, putting people around you that can really support you, because then you can be confident even if you don't know what exactly you're doing.
Well, I love that, because it's such a great role model for your entrepreneurs that in the Naturally Colorado, that you're actually being very entrepreneurial yourself, yet exemplifying that, and by tapping into mentors and tapping into your board and knowing that you can't do it all on your own. I would like to observe that, having been with Naturally Boulder for the longest time, when you first said that you were morphing to Naturally Colorado, I was probably one of the people, not probably, I was one of the people that's like, oh my gosh, Naturally Boulder can't go away.
Yeah.
Because it was
I
just,
remember exactly what you said.
I was just like so OG, like you can't get rid of it. And now, having just been to an event this week and having just watched the progress over the last year, I am just so impressed and amazed with what you've done, but also having the vision that it was bigger than Boulder. I think that, I like to think that I can be visionary in some fronts, but I didn't have that vision. And now that I see what you've done, it's like, it's a real wow. And it was the right thing to do.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It isn't just me. It's the whole team. I mean, Taylor DeWitt is my counterpart as the community engagement manager. She does an amazing job. And as I mentioned, the working board. And so the support is there. And I think that, we're so much bigger than just Boulder. It's moving across the state. There's so many things that are happening in rural. Utopia Now is here in Denver. I mean, Colorado is becoming more of that epicenter for what's happening. And ultimately, our goal is to be a stronger economic development engine that really says these are the things that are happening from an entrepreneur perspective, but these are the scaling business also. These are the stable businesses that have been around forever. And now, as a bigger community, we can really share a lot of that. Don't reinvent the wheel. Like, we can share all that so that we're lifting everybody.
I love that. I mean, being with Rudy's is going to be our 50th year anniversary.
Yes, that's so awesome. Congratulations.
So, yeah, and it's, so I think is like an iconic brand in this market. We have about 80 employees today. When I was a CEO before, we had 250 employees.
Okay.
And we're trying to build it back up. And I think everything that you're doing to create the ecosystem here in Colorado, to me, it's about creating jobs.
Yeah.
That is really so much of what our mission should be as business owners and leaders here in this market. So, what you're doing is super important.
I think the economic development piece of it, I think also the better for you piece of it, the healthier options for people, and bringing that to more people is really important. So, we have so many great things that are happening within this community at companies like Rudy's that I am super happy about that. It's part of my, my mission, my passion that I'm helping to drive that and helping to bring those companies together to raise everybody.
Oh, that is so great. Well, it's super impressive what you're doing. Just maybe one final question. Our audience is kind of broad, but most everyone's looking for a little inspiration. So just maybe to summarize, what do you get most excited about yourself?
I get excited about people who really want to build something new and fun and bring to the table a healthier option, because, we're filled with a lot of stuff that isn't great for you, but it can be all the different food options, the lifestyle options, getting outside, all those pieces. And that makes me really happy. And what Naturally Colorado is bringing to build upon that really is why I'm here.
That's great. Well, thank you for your time today.
I really appreciate it.
It's so nice to talk to you in this context.
Awesome. Thank you.
One of the things that really struck me about my conversation with Kristine was her balanced approach to having failures and successes in our lives and not being overly down with the failures or overly confident with our successes. If you have never read the poem called If by Rudyard Kipling, please find it, and you will get timeless wisdom about balancing both. I also like the 3 action words that Kristine used to frame how we become more resilient. Improvise, even if you don't know how to do something. Adapt, and grow along the way. Overcome, building on learnings from both successes and failures. Her focus on the importance of mentorship brings these questions to mind for us. First, when we feel lonely, who do we turn to? And second, how do we not reinvent the wheel and learn to lean on others? If you watched this episode with Kristine, you saw my dog Earl on her lap the whole time. Just a little insider information here. When Kristine first met Earl, she admitted that she was really not a dog person. But I think as only Earl can do, he converted her. Now let me turn the mic over to Earl, who is the sponsor for Season 2 with his Happy Hug Box.
Hey, Earl here, Chief Hugs Officer at Jane's Place. After joining almost every episode, I discovered my passion, and that passion is giving hugs. Hugs, hugs. I also learned something pretty important along the way too. When things feel hard or uncertain, and sometimes even when life is exciting, words aren't always enough. But showing up for someone is. And by adding a hug, you say, I care. So I've started a hugs movement to kick off 2026. I just know the world can be a better place if we are generous with our hugs. But since I can't be everywhere, I've created Earl's Happy Hug Box. It's a special gift box curated by me, and inside there's a comfy, life-size plush that looks just like me. I call him Earl Jr. Plus a few other fun things are included too. Now, if someone came to mind while you were listening or watching today, this might be for them. Or might even be what you could use right now. You can learn more at janesplace.com/Earl. But for now, I'll leave you with one of my Earls of Wisdom. Show up, hug often.
Special thanks to my amazing producer, Aditi Joshi, for her partnership in creating Jane's Place and all her hard work behind the scenes to make Jane's Place so special. I am also grateful that my Chief Hugs Officer, Sir Earl Grey, has a real voice thanks to my good friend, Jake Dawson. And Jane's Place feels like home with the music from an amazing musician, Tim Cook. Tim gave us permission to use the Subdued song, Them Figs, as our upbeat theme music. Tune into the next episode of Jane's Place, where dreams learn to fly.